We begin today the Gemara on Daf Mem Vav, one line down in the top of the Yomut. The Gemara here is in the middle of discussing the halacha that it said in the Mishnah when there's an argument between an employer and his worker whether he was paid already or not. And the Mishnah said that this is one of the cases where Chachamim in the Zman Mishnah were misakin that the worker is a nishba v'noitel. He can swear that he did not get paid yet, and he can collect this payment. And the reason for this is, the Gemara explained on Daf Mem Hey, because an employer is busy with many different workers, and therefore he could be under the impression that he paid him, but he really paid someone else. And he's not sure about this, and therefore he says this, and he could be lying about this. Whereas when it comes to the worker, he says that I was not paid yet, so we trust him more, that Yutaka wasn't paid. And therefore, if he swears that he was not paid, he can collect this payment. That's the takana that the Mishnah speaks about. Okay, so on this, the Gemara here brings Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba Sholchule mibei Rav l'Shmuel. It was sent from the students from the yeshiva of Rav, sent the following question to Shmuel: Yilamdeinu Rabbeinu. Our teacher should teach us what would be the halacha in this case. Uman Aime Shtaim Katzatztali, a craftsman that has a job to be done, and he comes and argues and says that the price that was set was that you were going to pay me two. But the owner that hired him, the employer that hired him, says, no, I only made up to pay you one. So mi nishba. In this case, who will swear to back up his claim? Do I say that the balabas is the one that swears, the employer is the one that swears, and he will be putter of paying him? Or do we say that in this case as well, what it said in the Mishnah, that we give the worker the ability to swear and then collect his pay, applies not only in a case where the argument is whether he was paid yet or not, but it also applies in a case where the argument between the employer and the worker is how much it is that they made up that he would pay him. Okay, now, when you look here at the case that the Gemara says, it simply seems like this is a case of a maida b'miktsas. The worker says, you owe me two, and the balabas admits to the fact that, no, we made up, I would pay you one. In such a case, menatayre, by maida b'miktsas, the employer would have to swear. He's maida b'miktsas. So according to that pshat, the shaila is, do I say in this case that we leave it the way it is menatayre that the balabas swears? Or do I say that here the takana of Chachamim applies, that we transfer the shvur from the balabas to the worker, and we give him the ability to swear and collect his pay, his full pay that he claims is owed to him? That's a simple pshat in the Gemara. But there are many Rishonim that say, the Megash and others, and some say that this is also Rashi's shitta, that's not the pshat in this case. We're not talking here about a case of Maida b'miktsas. It's talking about a case where the employer is saying, I only made up to pay you one, and that one I made up to pay you, I paid you already. So I owe you nothing. He's a kaifer hakol. So menatayre, there's no shvua. And lamai, what the Gemara is saying is, still someone has to swear in this case, even if it's a kaifer hakol, the balabas midrabanan would swear, or no, we say that the sachir, the worker, or in this case the uman, he's a craftsman that's doing a job, or he would swear. So there is no shvua menatayre in this case. But the question is, who is the one that has the right to swear? Is it the employer that swears to pattern himself of paying? Or is it the worker that swears, and with that koyach of the shvur, he collects his pay? Okay, so now Amalehen, so Shmuel answered them and said, Bezu, in this case, Yishava Balabayas, the employer, the Balabas is the one that swears, and the Yafseduman, and the craftsman will lose out. And what's the reason? Even though in the Mishnah it said that usually Chachamim instituted that a worker swears and collects his pay, because here, Ketzitze, regarding the price that was set, that's the basis of their argument, this is something that people definitely remember. The whole takon of the Mishnah, as I mentioned before, was based on the svara that the employer has more than one worker, so he doesn't necessarily remember who it is that he paid. But the worker himself knows that he was not paid, so we trust him more. But over here, in this case, where the argument is about what the pay was, is it one or two, this is something that the balabas, the employer, remembers what the price was, and therefore there's no reason to believe the worker if he would swear. But over here, the balabas is the one that swears, whether because he's a maida b'miktsas, as I mentioned, or even if not, he can swear and he'll be potter. So the Gemara asks on this, is this true? But v'hatani Rabbi Bar Shmuel. Rabbi Bar Shmuel taught the following brayse, that kotzatz, in a case where, this exact case, where the employer and the worker are arguing about the price that was set, so the price says, what's the halacha? The worker that wants to collect, he wants to be maitzi money from his employer, he's going to have to prove, he's going to have to bring a proper raya. He can't just swear and collect. He's going to have to bring a proper raya to prove that this is the amount that's owed to him. That's the brisa. Now, what do we see from this brisa? V'i loy maisi raya. It seems from this brisa that if he would not bring a proof for the amount he claims that was set that he owes, then paka, then the balabas would be potter to pay this amount. That's what the Gemara is medaik, and it's from here that the Rishonim say that it seems like we're not talking about a case of Moed b'miktzas, because if it was a case of Moed b'miktzas, then the balabas wouldn't just be potter. Moed b'miktzas, he would be chayiv a shvuah min atayra. Okay, but now the question is, why would the balabas be potter in such a case? Amai yishava balabayis v'yafsid uman, as was just said. Shmuel said that in such a case, when there's an argument about the price that was set, the balabas is not just going to be potter. He has to swear, and only after he swears, then the uman, the craftsman, will lose that amount that he claims that he's owed. Here it's mashma that we say that the worker has to bring a raya to his claim, and if not, then the balabas doesn't have to pay. Why doesn't he have to swear? As says the Gemara, Rav Nachman, so Rav Nachman explained, the words in this braise are incomplete. Litzdadin katani. The braise is only saying one side, one part of the psak din in this case. What the braise really means to say is, oy mevi raya. Either the worker will prove his case with proper proof, with edim, not just by swearing, because in this case, since the argument is about the price, he can't just swear, but he has to bring a proper proof, and v'yitol, and then he'll take the amount he claims is owed to him. Or in a case where he does not bring a proper proof, then what happens? The employer is going to have to swear what the price was, and the worker, the craftsman, will lose out. Right, so the main point the Bryce was trying to say is that the takana of the Chachamim, that the worker has the ability to swear and collect with that shvuah, does not apply here. So the Bryce says the first part of the story, that he has to bring a proper proof. The other part is, if the balabas wants to pater himself, he's going to have to swear, and then the craftsman will lose that amount that he claims is owed to him. Now, the Gemara asks from another Bryce, which also seems to contradict the point that Shmuel said. So Meisvei, the Brisa says as follows: a person gave his garment to a craftsman to fix it. Now Uman Aimer, the craftsman says, Katzatztoli shtayim, that you set the price that you're going to pay me two for this job. V'hala Aimer, but the owner says, no, lekatzatzti locha ela achas, I only made up to pay you one. So this case that we're talking about, there's an argument about the price of what he made up to pay him. So the Brisa says, "Calls mancha talis biyad uman." If this talis is still in the hands of the craftsman, so in such a case, al balabais lahavi raya, the balabas is going to have to prove that he only owes him one. Because in such a case, Rashi says, since he still has it in his possession, the din is hamaitz mechaveri olav raya. He still has it, and the balabas wants to get back his garment for a lower price that he claims that was set. He's going to have to bring a raya in order to get that talis back from the uman, the craftsman that still has it in his hands. And now that's even though the craftsman is admitting, this is not my talis. He's saying, yeah, the talis belongs to you, but here, this is the price. So if you want to get it back for your price that you claim, which is half, you're going to have to bring a raya. There's other reasons to this as well. One of the reasons that Rishonim add, that it says the Gemara in Baba Basra, that over here, this uman that has the talis in his hands, has the upper hand as long as it's in his hands, because he has a migum. He could have just simply claimed, this talis is my talis. Doesn't even belong to you, B'chlal. There was no raya that he gave it to him to fix, that it's his. So therefore, in such a case, the balabas is going to have to bring a raya to his claim that he only owes him one half of what the uman says. Now, nitna loy, if it was already, or nasna loy, if the uman, the craftsman, already gave back the talis to the owner of the talis. So if it's bismanoi, if it's in the time of payment, which would mean on that very day that he gave it back to him, then nishba v'noitel, the craftsman can swear for the price that he claims was set, and he can collect that price. However, if it's already after that day, it's already past the time, then in such a case, the halach is then the socher cannot swear and collect his amount that he claims he's owed. He's going to have to bring a proof for that amount. Now, this difference, whether it's on that day, if it's in the time, or if it's past the time, is something that the Gemara explained already before in Daf Mem Hey, that this whole idea, this whole takana that we give the worker the ability to swear for the amount that he claims is owed, and he can collect just with that shvuah, is only if it's in the time of payment, not past the time of payment. Past the time of payment, there's a svara that the balabas definitely paid him already, and paid him this amount. That the takana does not apply past that time. But in the time though, if it's on that day when he was supposed to be paid, and he claims that this is the price, what is this brisa saying pretty clearly? That here as well, the takana applies, that he can swear and collect that price that he claims is owed to him. So the Gemara says, Bismanoi, on that day, the worker, the craftsman, could swear and collect the price that he says is owed to him. But the question is, Amai, why is that the case? Didn't Shmuel say that in this case, this takana that we give the worker this ability to collect with this shvuah does not apply? So instead, what should be, the halacha should be here is, Yishava balabayis v'yafseduman. The owner of the talus should be the one that's swearing about the price that was set, and the worker should lose out. In such a case, as the Gemara said before, the balabas knows we trust him as much as we trust the worker regarding the price. So over here, the balabas, which is trying to pater himself, he should be the one that should swear and would be pater. Why are we saying that we give the power to the worker that he could swear and collect and be moitzi mammon without a proper raya? Okay, so this is a clear brayse that is a contradiction to Shmuel's halacha. So Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Homani Rabbi Yehuda. You're right, this brayse is a different opinion. This brayse is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda.
Why did you change the whole thing to say this is it's talking about that it's a day later?
No. It says clearly Bismanoi. It said clearly the brayse Bismanoi, and the day on that day the sacher could, or the uman. Yeah. No. Shmuel was also talking about Bismanoi. If it's after the Zman, everybody agrees that this whole takana of a worker swearing and collecting does not apply. That's a davar pashut that the Gemara already explained before in Daf Mem Hey. Here, the whole discussion is in its time. Okay, so now the Gemara explains that this brayse that says that the worker could still collect on that day, who's this going according to? Rabbi Yehuda. It follows the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Amar Rabbi Yehuda says, Kolzman sheshvuah noite eitzel balabayis. Anytime you have a shvuah that the balabas is obligated to swear, sacher nishba v'noitel. What we do is we take that shvuah that lies upon the balabas and we transfer it over to the worker. In any case, which means what the Gemara is saying is that over here, this brayse is speaking about a case of Maideh b'miktsas. The worker says, I'm owed 2. The balabas admits to half. He says, I'm only owed 1. So it's a Maideh b'miktsas. The balabas is chayav the shvuah minat Torah. So Rabbi Yehuda's opinion is, anytime the balabas is the one that's chayav the shvuah minat Torah, we transfer over that shvuah, we give the sacher, the worker, the right to swear about this and to collect what's owed to him. And so that's even in a case where the argument is about what price it was. In a case where they're arguing about whether he was paid or not, and also in this case where they're arguing about what price was set. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda.
Saying that. What's he saying? That the
Chacham disagree with this.
The Chacham take
the shvuah minat Torah, correct, and they say
make it better for the other person.
Yes,
Torah
correct.
says that he can't.
The Gemara will explain. Everything will be explained. It's also based. We learned this before in Daf Mem Hey, but in this case where there's a chiyuv shvuah minat Torah on the balabas to pater himself, Rabbi Yehuda holds in every case of when you're dealing with a balabas and a worker, you transfer over the shvuah to the worker to swear and pater himself. So now the Gemara says, Hi Rabbi Yehuda. One second. Hi Rabbi Yehuda. Where do you find the source of Rabbi Yehuda? Where did he say this? Rabbi Yehuda, the Masnisen. Is it what Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah? Now, what did Rabbi Yehuda say in the Mishnah? In the Mishnah, it brings on Daf Mem Dalet. It brings the source of this halacha regarding every worker. That this is, as I mentioned in the beginning, this is the case of a nishba v'noitel where Chachamim instituted when there's an argument between an employer and an employee. It's the employee that has the ability to swear and collect what he claims he wasn't paid yet. That's what it said in the Mishnah. On this, Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah, we don't always say this kind of takana. When does that apply? Only if there's a Maideh b'miktsas. If the balabas was a Maideh b'miktsas and says, I still owe you part of what you claim I owe you, and then the balabas minat Torah would be chayiv to swear. It's here only in such a case because there's already a chiv shua minat Torah that the chachamim were masakin. Then instead of allowing the balabas to swear and pater himself, we transfer that shua to the worker and he can swear to get paid. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says in the Mishnah. So now the Gemara is saying, is that the source of what you're bringing here? That Rabbi Yehuda of the Mishnah, he's the source of this Braisa here as well, that's saying that the worker, in this case, even when the argument is not only about whether he was paid or not, the argument is about the price, that in this case as well, if the balabas is a ma'id b'miktsas, then the worker swears and will collect it. Says the Gemara, that can't be the source for Rabbi Yehuda in this Braisa here. Why? Because Achmurei, Kamachmer, over there we see that Rabbi Yehuda is actually more stringent than the Chachamim. So we see that Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent. He doesn't allow the worker to always swear to collect what is owed to him. The Tanan, as it says in the Mishnah, Rabbi Yehuda comes and says, when do we allow the worker to swear and collect what he claims is his? Only if the employer was a Maida b'miktsas. Which means the Chachamim say, even if it's a kaifarak kail and there was no shvur here at all, we allow the worker to swear and collect what's his. And Rabbi Yehuda limits it. No, Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent on the worker. He says, no, the worker can't always swear and collect what's his. If there was a chiv shvur for the balabas, because he was a ma'id b'miktsas, then Chachamim were masakin to transfer that shvur to the worker. So if that's the case, Rabbi Yehuda is more machmer. How could you say that this braisa, which is being more makel, which is giving the worker more of the right to be able to swear? You can't say that Rabbi Yehuda, he's the one that's saying that even in this case, where the argument is not about whether he was paid or not, the argument is about the price. That Rabbi Yehuda, he's the one that says that even when the argument is about the price, we give the worker the right to swear and collect. Adarabah, but Rabbi Yehuda is the one that was more machmer. He was the one that limited the right of the worker to swear and collect. So therefore, the Rabbi Yehuda from the Mishnah is not a source for this. Ella says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda the Braisa. There's a Braisa where Rabbi Yehuda's opinion of the Mishnah is explained, and here in the Braisa, Rabbi Yehuda clearly spells out that he holds that even in this case where they're arguing about the price, the worker can swear and collect what he claims the price was. The Tanya, because we learned in the Braisa, Sachir, when it comes to a worker, Kol Zman, Shalei Over Olav Zmanoi, as long as the time of the payment has not passed yet, if it's before the time or it's on the day when he's supposed to be paid, and he claims he wasn't paid yet, here's where the Takanas Chacham applies, that he could swear and collect that money. V'im lav, ein an ishba v'noitel. But if it's not the day of his payment, if it's later on, then he cannot swear and collect that money, because after the time we assume that he was already paid. That's a Tanakama. Now on this, Rabbi Yehuda says, Ei Messiah, when do we say that we give the worker the ability to swear and collect what's owed to him? Bizman, only if there's a ma'ida b'miktsas here. Bizman she'amaloi ten lischari 50 dinar. If the worker claims you owe me 50 dinar, sheyesh li biyadcha, that you owe me. And the employer says, his kabalta mehem dinner zov. I gave you a golden dinner, which is 25 silver dinner, which means he says, I already paid you half. So I owe you only half. So he's a ma'ida b'miktsas. This is the case where the employer would have to swear. Or the argument between them is, and here Rabbi Yehuda spells out clearly that it applies also in a case where they're arguing about what the price was. So the worker says, "Shtayim katzatzta," that we made up that you're paying me 2, and the employer says, "No, like katzatzti lecha ela achas." I made up I would pay you only 1. So in both of these cases, because when there's a chiyuv of shvuah, here Chachamim instituted that we take that chiyuv shvuah of the employer and we transfer it instead to the worker. The worker is more trusted in this case, and he's the one that swears and gets what he claims is his. But if the employer claims, I never hired you, or he claims, yes, I hired you, but I paid you in full. In such a case, the employer is a kaifer akayel minatayra, there's no chiyuv shvuah, so this takana that the worker could swear and collect does not apply. It's like in every other case where he is going to have to bring a proper raya if he wants to collect what's owed to him. So here in this braisa we clearly see that Rabbi Yehuda says that as long as there is a moed b'miktsas, the power that Chachamim gave to the worker that we transfer the shvur to him, that he could collect by swearing, applies in both cases, when they're arguing about the pay itself, did he pay him yet or not, and also if they're arguing about what the price was. So therefore the braisa that we brought before, that says that they were arguing about the price and the worker has the ability to swear, who is this going according to? Rabbi Yehuda. So the Gemara asks on this, how could this be? How do we explain over here this machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim? Maskef lo Rav Sheisha Berei Ravidi. So Rav Sheisha Berei Ravidi asks about this. So now Ella, if so, kotzatz, that brisa of kotzatz that says different than what Shmuel said, that brisa that says that in a case where they're arguing about the price, so Rabbi Yehuda, so when it says that the worker still could swear and collect, it's only according to Rabbi Yehuda. V'loi Rabbanan, but the Rabbanan disagree with this. So the question over here is, how does this make sense, Misvara? How do we explain here this machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda and the Rabbanan? Because hashte heichede machma Rabbi Yehuda. If in a case where we see that Rabbi Yehuda is more stringent with the worker, he doesn't allow the worker to swear. That's a case of a kofer hakel, where there was no shvuah min hatayris, so Rabbi Yehuda is more machmer. But mekili Rabbanan, we see that even in this case, the Rabbanan are more lenient, and the Rabbanan still allow the worker to swear and collect what he says is owed to him. So if so, heichi the mekel Rabbi Yehuda. So now in this case that we're discussing here, regarding when their argument is about the price. What was the price? And you're telling me, and you're reading the Braisa, that Rabbi Yehuda is more makel in such a case. And even when the argument is about the price, Rabbi Yehuda says that the worker can swear and collect what he claims is his. Machmir Rabbanan. In this case, the Rabbanan are going to be more stringent with the worker and not allow him to swear. So there's something it's funny over here. On one hand, we see Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's more stringent with the worker. It has to dafka be a maida b'miktsas, and only then do we allow the worker to swear. On the other hand, we see that no, dafka Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's more lenient with the worker, and even when they're arguing about the price, we allow him to swear to collect what's his. So the machlokes here between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim is like a contradiction. Who's more machmer and who's more mekel? So the Gemara says, so ve'elamai. So what's your argument? What are you arguing to say? Rabbanan, that even the Rabbanan would agree to Rabbi Yehuda as well, that even if the argument is about the kotzatz, even if the argument is about the price that was set, still the Rabbanan would agree that the worker has the right to swear and collect. So if so, ve'elah the Tani Rabbi Bar Shmuel, kotzatz, hamaitz mechaveri olav arayeh, this brisa that the Gemara brought in the beginning, that when the argument is about the price that was set, that the worker cannot swear and collect, he's going to have to bring a proper raya for this. So money, or according to who does that brayso go? Lo Rabbi Yehuda v'lo Rabbanan. If you're arguing that even when they're arguing about the price, everybody agrees that the worker could swear and collect what he claims is his. So, but here we have a clear brayso that we quoted in the beginning that says that in such a case he cannot swear. He's going to have to bring a proper raya according to who this is going, not Rabbi Yehuda and not the Rabbanan. So therefore the Gemara says, Elo Omar Rove, so Rove explains, or the other gersa here is that it's without a Elo Omar Rove explains, because it's really, you don't have to say Elo, the Gemara is not having charote from the answer that it says before. The Gemara goes back to the answer that it said before, that there's two arguments here between the Chachamim and Rabbi Yehuda. One argument, it seems like Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's more machmer with the worker, and he says only if there's a maida b'miktsas, then the worker could swear and collect. And there's another argument regarding when there's a price that they're arguing about what was the price set. And over here, Rabbi Yehuda is the one that's more mekel, and he allows the worker to swear. So the Gemara says it's not about kol and chumrah. And the Gemara here will explain what the machlokes is. The argument between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim is as follows. So first, the Gemara explains what's the argument whether we allow a worker to swear in every case, whether it's a maida b'miktsas or even kofer hakel where there is no shvuah min hatayra, or they're even arguing, or there's a chiyuv, we only allow the worker to swear in a case where it's maida b'miktsas. What's the pshat in this machlokes? So ba'al kamiflagi. This is what their machlokes is. Rabbi Yehuda Sova, Rabbi Yehuda holds b'da'iraisa of the letakanta l'socher. If there's a chiyuv shvuah min hatayra already here in this case, here's where the Chachamim came and instituted that the worker should be the one swearing. Why? Because in such a case, since there's already a chiyuv shvuah, because the employer was a maida b'miktsas, so Chachamim are not being mechadish this shvuah. There's already a chiyuv shvuah. So Chachamim have a svara that regarding a worker, the worker is more trustworthy than the balabas, as I explained before, because the balabas has many different workers, and the worker himself, he's saying about himself that I was not paid yet, he's more trustworthy. So Chachamim were misakin that we take that shvuah that's already here, and we allow the worker to swear to collect his money. However, if it's a case where Minat Torah there's no Chi of Shvuah here. Why? Because it's a Kaifer HaKoil. By a Kaifer HaKoil, there's no Shvuah at all. So the whole concept of a Shvuah would be a Takana. And therefore, v'takanta l'takanta lo yavdinon. To make one takana and then to make a second takana, this we would not do. So Rashi explains, in such a case where there's a kaifer hakol, the whole concept of a shvuah would be a takana that the balabas would have to swear when he's a kaifer hakol. And Rashi here says that this is the takana of shvuas heses, that even by a kaifer hakol you have to swear. The Rishonim say, even though we're speaking over here about this chiyuv of shvuah, that's bisman HaMishnah. Bisman HaMishnah, there was no shvuas heses. Rashi uses the term shvuas heses for all kinds of shvuas midrabanan, but really it refers to this chiyuv of shvuah that's midrabanan bisman HaMishnah. It's before this man of shvuas heses. But the point of here is that minat Torah, there's no chiyuv shvuah in such a case. So the first takana would be that Chacham would institute that the employer swears. Just like the Shvuah Minat Torah. By every Shvuah Minat Torah, as the Mishnah says, who's the one that swears? The one that wants to pater himself. So over here, since there's no Chiv Shvuah B'chlal, you have to have one takana that the Balabas swears to pater himself. And then you have to have a takanta l'takanta, a second takana, to change the status of this Shvuah and take it from the Balabas and give it to the worker that he could swear and collect and take out money. That lo yavdinon. We don't make, in such a case, since there is no Chi of Shvuah here b'chlal, Chachamim do not make this kind of takana at all. However, Rabbanan's opinion is, but the Rabbanan nami yavdin takanta. Even if this is a case where Chachamim are the ones that are being mechadish the entire Shvuah, there is this takana that we give the worker the ability, the right to swear and collect. And according to the Chachamim, this is not considered to be two takanas. One takana that the shvuah should be, and that would be on the balabas, and then a second takana that it's given to the worker. It's not two takanas. It's one takana. Chachamim, in such a case, they trust the worker more, and therefore they gave him the ability to swear to collect. That's the explanation of their machlokes, whether this applies only by the case of Maida b'miktzas when there's already a shvuah minat Torah, or it applies also by a case of kaifer hakol when Chachamim had to be misaken the entire shvuah. Now there's a second machlokes over here. Then the second machlokes is if the argument between the employer and the worker is not regarding whether he was paid or not, but the argument is about the price that was set. So over here, what's the basis of their machlokes? A different point. Chachamim say mitka docher, as was mentioned before. The svara is regarding the argument of a price. There's no reason to trust the worker more than the balabas. We say that the balabas also remembers what the price was, and therefore we don't give the worker any special rights to swear and collect. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda holds, even if the argument is about the price set, there is still a svara to say that the worker remembers more than the balabas, because the balabas has many different workers working for him. Just like we say b'chlal, if they're arguing about whether he paid him or not, that we trust the worker more. Even when the argument is about the price, we still trust the worker more. That's the argument regarding the ktsitza, when there's a machlokes here between the worker and the balabas regarding the price set. So these two arguments between Rabbi Yehuda and the Chachamim are two separate points. It's not, the Gemara before was asking, there's a kol, there's a chumrah, one is Rabbi Yehuda mekel, one is Rabbi Yehuda machmer. It's two separate arguments that have two separate svaras. That's the argument. Now the Gemara goes back to what it says in the Mishnah. This was the second case where Chachamim were misakin a nishba v'naitel, that a person can swear and can collect based on his taina. Again, minat Torah, you only swear and pati yourself. Chachamim instituted certain cases where you can swear and just with the basis of your shvuah, your taina and your shvuah, you can collect money. So the case was nigzal, a person that was robbed from Ketzad. How was this? Eidim come and say that this person, he was a lender, and he went into the borrower's house to go and take a mashkin without permission. And he walked out of the house, and the Mishnah says he walked out of the house, and now the borrower says, you took my kalim without my permission. And this person says, no, I didn't take it. Didn't take anything. In such a case, because we have Eidim that he went into his house, so we give the one that was robbed from the right to swear that he took the kalim from him, and he can collect those kalim from him. So the Gemara asks, how do you know? What's the basis that we should believe this homeowner that claims he was robbed from? V'dilme loy mishkanai. Maybe he didn't take any keli as a collateral. He walked into his house, and he came and said, I'm going to take kalim from you because you owe me money and you're not paying me. But maybe in the end he didn't take anything. So the fact that you have Eidim that saw him walking into his house and saying he's gonna take, that's enough of a basis to say that he probably took something, and therefore we should believe this homeowner that he probably took from him and he could swear and collect from him. The Gemara brings an example. Mi loy Omer Rav Nachman. Didn't Rav Nachman say the following halacha? Hi man the nocket nage b'yodeh. A person is holding an axe in his hands. V'amar, and he says, Ezel v'iktele ledikle leplanya. I'm going with my axe and I'm going to cut down so and so's palm tree. And v'shtakach the kotl, and you see that the palm tree was cut, and v'shadi, it's lying on the ground. Lo yamrina hu katle. We're not going to automatically come to a conclusion that this person probably cut this tree, even though we have Eidim that he said, and he was holding an axe in his hand, and he said, I'm going to go and cut it, but we didn't actually see him cutting it. So Alma, what do we see? Ovid imish the gazim v'lo Ovid. It's the nature of people, when they get angry about something, he could say something which is an exaggeration. Rashi says it's a guzman, a shigoin. The person went crazy and he said such a thing, but he doesn't necessarily do it. So if so, hachanami, the gazim v'lo Ovid. Over here as well, it could be that it's just an exaggeration. Eime omeshkanoi. Sorry. This is already the answer to the Gemara. Okay, so the Gemara is asking, so why can't we say that this is just an exaggeration? So that just the fact that you saw that he said that I'm going to take Kalim, how do you know that he actually took something from him? So the Gemara answers, Amen. You have to add to the Mishnah, Mishkanai. We actually have Eidim that say that he did take those Kalim from him. Eidim saw him walking into the house and they saw him taking Kalim. So the Gemara says, well, if you have actually Eidim that saw him taking the Kalim, so v'lechsi my Mishkanai. So you have clear Eidim that saw what he took. So what's the Mishnah saying? That now this homeowner swears what it is that he took from him? What does he have to swear? You have Eidim that saw exactly what happened. The case over here is the case over here is that this person comes, that the homeowner comes and claims he took kalim from me, and the Eidim saw that he took kalim, but those kalim that he took were under his garment, and therefore we don't know what those kalim were, and therefore we're going to trust the balabas that comes and says that this is the kalim that he took from me. That's one pshat in the Gemara, or another pshat in the Gemara is, this is what it's mashmir from Taisvis and other Yishainim, that there's Eidim that he took Kalim. Regarding those Kalim that the Eidim saw he took, there's no argument about it. But now the Balabas comes and claims, besides those Kalim that the Eidim saw that he took, there's additional Kalim that he also had under his garments. And that's what we trust the one that was robbed from, that if this Kalim that we saw that he actually robbed, so now we know that this person would probably steal even more, and the other Kalim under his garments could also be that he stole, and therefore he can swear and collect those additional Kalim as well. Amar Rav Yehuda, now based in connection to this, the Gemara starts here another inyan regarding Bechlal, the concept of a chazaka, regarding metaltalin, a person that has metaltalin in his possession, and he claims that he bought them, he claims that it's his. So Amar Rav Yehuda says, Ra'u shehitmin kelim tachas knafa v'yotza. We see that a person walked out of someone's house, and there's vessels that he was hiding under his garments, and he walked out of this person's house. And va'omar, and he's hiding these kelim, walking out of this person's house, and he claims, L'kuchaneim biyadi. I bought them. It's mine. And he's not going to be believed to say that he bought them. So Rashi here says, as the Gemara will soon conclude, the balabas that he walked out of his house is saying that this person borrowed these kelim from me, and he has to return them. No, but this person says, I bought them. He's not going to be believed. Now, even with the shvuah, that is, even if he swears he's not going to be believed, he's going to have to bring a proper raya that he bought it. Now, v'lo yamaron, when it was this said that he's not going to be believed to say that it's his, ela balabayis she'ena also limka kelov. It's when he walks out of the house of a person that's not selling these kind of a kelim. He's just a private person. So you're walking out of his house and you're hiding these kelim, so you're not going to be believed. But if you walk out of someone's house which sells these kind of kelim, then you're going to be believed, even if the person is hiding these kelim. But since he's coming out of the house of a person that sells these kelim, and he claims he bought it from him, and this balabas says, no, I only lent it to you, he is going to be believed. Furthermore, and if it's a person that doesn't sell these kind of kelim, that we said that he's not believed, it's only if what kind of kelim is he hiding under his garments when he walks out of his house, kelim that it's not usual to hide them. There's no reason and it's not usual to hide them. So in such a case, if this person is hiding them, why is he hiding them? So over here, he got it from a person where it's not usual that he would sell them. So his taina that he says that he bought it from this person doesn't make sense. And also the fact that he's hiding it. Why is he hiding this? It seems like he's hiding it because he borrowed it. He doesn't want people to know that he's poor and he has to borrow these kalim. But if it's kalim that the derech is to hide these kalim, neman, then he will be believed, since it's the derech to hide them, even if this is a person that doesn't usually sell these kind of kalim. But it could be that a person had a need for money and he sold these kind of kalim. Furthermore, the Gemara says, "V'she'ein dakal hatman." Even if it's such kind of kalim that it's not usual for a person to hide them, so nami lo yamada. It wasn't said that he's not believed. Ela inish delay tzniya. If it's not a person that's very private about everything that he does, aval inish de tzniya. But if it's a person that's very private with his things, so even if he bought it and seemingly there's no reason for him to hide it, and because it's not kalim that's made to be hidden, behind orche. This is normal for him, and therefore, if he comes and claims that he bought it, he'll be believed. Now here the Gemara clarifies another point, that I mentioned in the beginning, this whole thing over here that we're saying, that he's not going to be believed. What's the case over here? If the argument between the person that has the kalim and the balabas that he took the kalim from is that he says that he bought it, and the person that he came out of his house says, no, he borrowed it from me. If the argument is where the balabas says that this person stole these kalim from me, in such a case, lav kol kamine. He's not believed to say that he stole the kalim from him, because it's not logical. We do not assume that this person stole these kalim. Yes, in other words, this kind of a taina that he stole it, for a person to steal kalim is not common. As the Mefarshim explain, the svara that the Gemara is saying over here, Achzuki inshi begazlanusa loy machzikinon, is not a svara that's based on a cheskes kashrus, that a person has the cheskes kashrus that he wouldn't steal, because even if the argument is whether he bought it or he borrowed it, if he actually borrowed it and he's claiming that he bought it, he's also a ganef, he's trying to steal. That's not the svara here. The point is that it's not common for a person to steal because a person knows that if he steals, he can get caught. And a person does not want to steal. So a taina of geneva is something which is lo shchiach. And therefore, if the balabas claims that it was stolen, even if this person is hiding these kalim, and it's kalim that are not usually sold by this person, and it's not kalim that's usually meant to be hidden, but this taina that this person stole it, to steal it, is not something that's common, and therefore he's not going to be believed. Furthermore, the Gemara says, "V'lo yamaron." So here we have the girsa in our Gemara. This is the way Rashi learns the pshat in the Gemara. That "v'lo yamaron" here means to say that here this person that's holding the kalim in his hands. So it wasn't said that he is not going to be believed. Elo b'dvarim ha'asuyin lahashul lahasker. If it's kinds of kalim that are made for lending or renting out. Right, so when it says here in the Gemara, what does this mean? Simply, it means it's such kind of kalim that sometimes people will lend these kalim to someone or rent out these kalim. That's according to Rashi's pshat. The Rambam, the famous Rambam about this, he says that asuyim lahashal hasker doesn't just mean kalim that sometimes people lend out. Asuyim means that it's kinds of kalim that are made lechatchila just for the purpose of lending out. For example, in those times, the massive pots. People didn't have such massive pots on their own. These were kelim that were lechatchila made to lend out. Only if such kind of kelim that lechatchila are made to lend out, then I say that the one that's holding on to it and claims that he bought it will not be believed. Avol dvarim she'ein asuyin lahashul lahasker nemon. But if it's such kind of kelim that are not made to usually lend out or to rent, so then he will be believed. The Gemara brings the source for this to Shalach Rav Huna bar Avin, as Rav Huna bar Avin sent to say, Dvarim ha'asuyim lahashul lahasker v'amar lukuchanim biyadi, that if it's kelim that are made to lend out or to rent out, and this person claims that he bought it, then ein nemon. Then this person will not be believed if the case over here is that he's hiding it, and all the details that the Gemara said before, that he will not be believed. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara over here, that if it's dvarim asuyin lahashul lahaskir, he will not be believed, but that's only together with all of the different points that the Gemara said before. Other Rishonim, though, change the gears in the Gemara. Taisvus over here, most Rishonim say that if it's kalim that are suya lahashul lahaskir, you don't need all the conditions that the Gemara mentioned before, that he's hiding it, that it's not a person that usually sells this, in order to say that this person is not believed. If it's kalim that's made to lend out or to rent out, in such a case, the machzik, the one that's holding on to these kelim, will never be believed, even without the details that the Gemara mentioned before. And as you see here, that's what it's mashmeh actually in the continuation of the Gemara. The Gemara here brings Kihad Rave, like the psak din that Rave paskind, apik zuge de sarbele. He took away a scissors that is made to use by those workers that comb these garments and fix garments, and the safre da agadete, and a sefer that has agadis in it. This is a sefer that has stories, agadis in it, which means it's not a sefer of halachas that you use on a constant basis. It's a sefer that's only used occasionally. So he took this away from who? Miyasmi, from Yisayimim. In other words, the case was that there were Yisayimim, and someone came to Rave, to the Bezdin, and said that their father borrowed this scissors or this sefer from me, and Rave Taka took it away from them. Why? Because it's bidvarim ma'asuyim lahashal lahasker. This kind of scissors is something which is usually borrowed. And this sefer da'agadat, Rashi says, a regular sefer that a person uses all the time, he doesn't lend out to people, because when you use it so often, it can get ripped easily. You don't lend it out to people. But a sefer of agadat, which is used occasionally, this is something which is usually lent out to people, and therefore Rave took it away from the Yisayimim when there was a claim that the father borrowed it from this person. Okay, so Rashi explains that usually by Yisayimim, the halacha is Bezdin will taina for the Yisayimim whatever the father could have tained. In this case, because it's Dvarim Asuyim Lahashal Lahaskir, if the father would claim that he bought it, he wouldn't be believed. And therefore, Rava took it away from the Yisayimim and gave it back. So here we see that if it's Dvarim Asuyim Lahashal Lahaskir, the one that's machzik, the one that holds on to it, is not believed. Okay, this Gemara that we just learned is the source for the concept that's brought in the entire Shas, that there's a concept of chazaka, kol ma shetachas yad odam shaloyu. If a person has something in his possession and he claims it's his, he's believed. He has the upper hand because there's a chazaka that it's his, and as the Gemara concludes this farah, if the one that's arguing with you says, no, you stole it from me, we don't assume that he stole it. He has the chazaka that this is his. As we learned here, there's different conditions about it, but this Gemara is a very fundamental thing that you see all the time in Shas. Okay, now going back to the halacha of the Mishnah, that it said that in a case where a person was robbed from, and there's Eidim, that someone walked in to rob from him, that he can swear to say what it is that he robbed and he'll be believed. Now who swears? So usually the balabas, the homeowner, swears about this. Now Omar Rave said, or another case, Omar Rav Papa, afil shaymer nishbat. This takana was not only for the homeowner himself, but even if he's not there, but there was a shaymer that was taking care of the house, he was guarding things, he also, the takana applies to him as well. He can swear what it is this person stole, or afila ishta shel shaymer, or even the wife of the shaymer is also part of this takana, that she can swear what it is that was nishbah, she can swear about this as well. Why Rav Papa asks, what's if there was someone that was hired, someone that was hired there, or lekitoi, someone that works there, can he also swear in place of the balabas himself about what happened here, even though he's not someone that's hired for this job to take care? This remains a shaila whether the takana of Chachamim applies to him as well. Amalei Rav Yemer said to Rav Ashi, Ta'anoi because the kaspa. What happens if, in this case where someone was robbed from, and the homeowner says, he stole from me a silver becher, something very expensive. So do we trust him to this extent that he could swear and collect this? What's the halacha? So he said, Chazina, we have to see. We have to look what the story is. If this is a rich person, or a very trustworthy person, the mifkadi inshi gabe, that people usually give him a pekadon, such an expensive item, mishtabe v'shakal. So it's included in this takana that since we have Aiden that he was robbed from, he can swear and collect this. But if he's not a person that is trustworthy or is this rich, he cannot swear for such an expensive thing and collect this. The next case, the Mishnah said, Nerbal. Nerbal Ketzah, the Mishnah says, another case where Chachamim instituted that a person can swear and collect just based on his shvuah when there was a person that was together with someone else, he went into someone else's domain, and he comes out all bruised up. So it's pretty clear that it's this person that bruised him, but we didn't clearly see it. So he can swear that he's the one that bruised me, and he owes me whatever money it is that he owes them for the injuries. So the Gemara says, the din that the Mishnah is saying that he has to swear in order to collect payment for the injuries that was caused to him, if the injury is in a place where it's possible that the person injured himself. It's in a place in the body where it could be that he injured himself. So therefore, he has to swear before he collects this money. But if the injury is in a place where the person couldn't have injured himself, then so then he can collect the money for this injury even without any shvuah, because it's clear that this other person that he was with injured him. But how do you know? Maybe what happened was he injured himself in some other way, he bumped into a wall or whatever else happened. So Rab Chia explains, no, it's in a case where it's clear that it happened from another person. You see that someone bit him, whether on his back or between his elbows, which means in higher up in the top part of his body where a person can't bite himself. So it's clear that someone else injured him. But maybe besides this person that you're accusing of injuring you, maybe there was someone else there that injured him. Says the Gemara, no, there was no one else there. So in such a case, you could collect from him even without a shvuah. The next case, the Mishnah said, a case where a person can swear and collect. When is this? If there's a chiyuv shvuah min atayra, amayde b'miktsas, so the person swears to be exempt of paying. But if this defendant that's supposed to swear is a person that there's a suspicion on him, that he swears falsely, so he can't swear, so what happens in this case? We transfer the shvuah to the claimant that he could swear and collect the money. And the Mishnah went on to say, how do we know that he swears falsely? Because he once swore before falsely regarding a case of a pikadin or regarding a testimony. And then the Mishnah finished off and said, va'afil shvuah shav. Even if he swore falsely regarding the shvuah shav. So the Gemara explains, what's the pshat here? My afil shvuah shav. What is the chiddush here that it's saying, even if he swore falsely for a shvuah shav? Says the Gemara, Loi mi baya kama. There's a chiddush over here that it's saying, Loi mi baya, needless to say, Hanach, other cases that the Mishnah says before, that proves that this person swears falsely. There's a suspicion on him. Because the Isbu, Kfiras Mamain, because he already was caught lying regarding something where there's money involved, Ela Filoha Nami, the Kfiras Dvarim Ba'almahu, even regarding this case, where there is no money involved. It's just words that he's saying something which is a lie. The shvuah shav is when a person swears about something which is a stone, that it's gold. So it's just words that he's swearing falsely. But nevertheless, even if he was caught lying and there's no money involved, loy mehem, he's still not going to be believed. That's the chiddush regarding this case. Like the Gemara, if that's the point, v'lisni nami shvuas bitui. Why does it only say shvuas shav? As we learned earlier in the Masech, the shvuas shav is when a person says a shvuah, as I just mentioned, about a stone that's a piece of gold. But it could also say another case where a person was caught lying. Shvuas bitui. Shvuas bitui would mean a person makes a shvuah that I'm going to eat, and then he doesn't fulfill his shvuah. It turns out to be a lie, that he doesn't go ahead and eat. That's the issur of shvuas bitui. Why wouldn't this person as well be suspected of swearing falsely? Says the Gemara, Kikatani Shvuah, it only mentions a case where a person is suspected of lying. It's when he swears that the moment he says the Shvuah out of his mouth, he lied right then. Aval Shvuah is bitui, when a person swears for the future that I will eat, and he does not go ahead and eat, so when he swore, he thought that he will fulfill it. He thought that he would eat. So therefore, in such a case, like that it doesn't say over here the person is not suspected of lying, because b'shas ma'isa, when he made the shvuah, he didn't lie. The Gemara says Tainach oichol v'lo oichol. That's if the shvuah's bitui is for the future, that I will eat or I will not eat. So then, when he made the shvuah, he wasn't a liar. But achalti v'lo achalti ma'ikelamem, as we learned earlier in the Masech, the shvuah's bitui is even regarding the past, when the person swears I did eat or I did not eat. So in such a case, he lied the moment the shvuah came out of his mouth. And this is different than a shvuas shav. Shvuas shav is when you lie about something that everybody knows about. And this is something that it's only private, not everybody knows about. So why doesn't the Mishnah mention this as well? So the Gemara says it means this as well. Tanish, shvuas shav, the Mishnah uses the example of shvuas shav, but v'chol dedamile. Anything else that's similar to shvuas shav, where he's swearing about the past, where the moment he says the shvuah out of his mouth, he's lying, then in such a case, the person is caught as a lie and he's suspected of swearing falsely and he can't swear anymore regarding any money matters.